Right now on the National Weather Desk, dust from the Sahara Desert blankets the skies over Texas.
But it's not only affecting our visibility.
Tracking the tropics, we're paying close attention to a disturbance in the Caribbean Sea.
This is the area in which we could see this specific wave develop.
Western wildfires, 4 are now burning near Denver, while firefighters work to contain the massive park fire in California.
We are at planning level 5. That's our highest level of fire response.
Drought watch, D.C. area officials urge water conservation for the first time in 14 years.
And that affects nearly 6 million residents.
And what you can do to restore family heirlooms after a storm hits.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Jordan Evans. For the past few weeks, a large plume of dust from the Sahara Desert has been crossing the Atlantic Ocean. It's now arrived in Texas, and not only is it turning blue skies to gray, but it's having an impact on the weather and people's health. San Antonio meteorologist Joe DiCarlo begins our coverage.
Across the Alamo City, a thick layer of Saharan dust blocks our normally clear view of the city's skyline from the northwest side, but it's not only affecting our visibility.
Any sort of foreign particle that's going to cause respiratory symptoms and could exacerbate your symptoms or make things worse.
To combat impacts from the dust, Dr. Chow recommends staying inside if you can, or taking action when you get back inside.
Change our clothes, shower, make sure we rinse off, wash our hands.
This plume of dust is the heaviest we've seen so far this year. Typically, we see 1 or 2 days per year of Saharan dust this heavy in South Texas, and the summer months is when it's the most common, when winds across the Saharan Desert shift westward, kicking up dust into the atmosphere, and trade winds take the dust thousands of miles across the Atlantic. For most, it doesn't cause major health problems, but it's important to listen to your body. The good news is that the dust will subside later this week.
To better understand how dust from Africa makes it all the way to the United States, let's turn to meteorologist Avery Tomasco.
It's because of how our atmosphere operates up here in the northern hemisphere. In general, weather in the northern hemisphere where we live moves from west to east. It's a different story, though, in Africa, where due to the extreme temperature differences between the Sahara Desert and the chilly waters of the Gulf of Guinea, weather here moves from east to west. Gets a special name, the African Easterly Jet, which has 2 big implications for Texas. We learned this earlier this month. Tropical waves that come off of the west coast of Africa eventually get into the Atlantic waters and spin up into hurricanes. That was Beryl earlier this month. The second impact, which is far more regular, every year we at least get one of these plumes, is the Saharan air layer develops. That's millions of tons of dust being lofted about 10,000 feet into the atmosphere. That's what allows it to complete the 5,000-mile journey all the way to Texas. With negative impacts in the air quality department, you're going to feel it in the eyes and in the throat. Allergies invigorated a bit. Plus, when dust is in place, harder to get rainfall. On the other side of the coin, this can lead to more colorful sunsets at times if the concentrations are a bit lower than what we're seeing now. And when dust is present, it's hard for tropical systems to develop in the Atlantic, which is largely why the first part of hurricane season, June all the way through July, which is where we are now, is typically quiet. That's going to change, though, as dust settles down and we get into August and September, especially a big flare-up in activity.
That dust plume is one of the reasons the tropics have been relatively quiet, but so far, Beryl has been the lone hurricane. Meteorologist Cheriston Clark looks ahead at what's to come in the Atlantic between now and the end of the season in November.
Beryl struck hard in early July.
It was the earliest Category 4 hurricane in the Atlantic, earliest Category 5 hurricane in the Atlantic. And typically, early season storm activity doesn't really correlate very much with what happens the rest of the season. But when it comes in the deep tropics, especially east of the islands, Eastern Caribbean, that's typically a harbinger of a very, very busy season.
For 3 weeks, the Caribbean and Atlantic basin have been clear. Elevated wind shear and Saharan dust play a role in this calm period.
Like the dust levels they're already showing signs of subsiding, but likely subsiding more significantly in the next couple of weeks. That's generally what happens from July into August, which is one of the reasons why the Atlantic hurricane season really picks up as you get towards the middle part of August.
Now we're approaching peak season.
It does look like things are going to pick up potentially quite significantly in 10 days to 2 weeks time frame. Coolness in the water has not been an issue this year, but the dust and dry air has still been plaguing things. And the season normally ends because the shear gets too strong, even though the waters are still pretty warm. This year, with the Atlantic being so hot and that combined with the likely transition over towards a La Nina, that is likely to keep the shear lower longer. So potentially we could see, significant storms in October, maybe even into November.
Now let's see what's happening in the tropics this morning. We continue to monitor a disturbance in the Caribbean Sea. It could soon turn into a tropical depression, which would eventually be the next named storm. West Palm Beach meteorologist Lauren Olsky has more.
Let's look at the tropics right now. I'm still monitoring this wave out near Puerto Rico right now with a 60% development chance through the next week. It's not going to develop, though, until it gets much closer to us. So this is still just a good reminder that we can see storms developing very close to our state and then move on shore quickly, which is why it's good to be prepared so that you're not running to the store last minute or you're getting caught off guard. Here's a look right now at where we can see this thing develop. And we're seeing the blob, that's what we're going to call this, shift a little bit further west. So there's a little bit more model agreements that I've been noticing that this actually could move into the Gulf of Mexico. We're probably not going to see any kind of tropical direct impact, at least right now. If things change, I'll let you know. But a lot of moisture is going to start to move into the state as we head into the weekend, and that will support some heavier downpours at times. Another model here showing you all of the rain that we could be dealing with. This would bring something into the Gulf of Mexico a little bit later, but it still brings us a lot of rain at times during the weekend.
There's a slight risk of severe thunderstorms in parts of the Midwest and Ohio Valley. Damaging winds, hail, even an isolated tornado could hit places like Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Cincinnati. A marginal risk, that's the lowest on the scale, that extends from Colorado to the East Coast. And extreme heat is still baking parts of the country. Excessive heat warnings are posted across the South as well as the Northwest. We're talking triple-digit temperatures in portions of Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas. 98 million Americans are under some kind of heat alert for today. People in northern Vermont are still cleaning up following devastating floods Tuesday morning. Residents of the town of St. Johnsbury say it's the worst they've ever seen. Many homes were destroyed. Others have a layer of mud coating the floor. Even more rain fell yesterday, but today and tomorrow should be a lot drier. A powerful thunderstorm hit the Omaha, Nebraska area yesterday afternoon. The strong winds knocked down portions of a fence and a large branch from the tree on the left of your screen. More than half of all homes and businesses in that region are without power this morning. There was also a confirmed tornado in nearby Iowa. Storms also knocked down trees and power lines near Atlanta on Tuesday. One person was killed after a large tree limb fell on his car. Many people lost power, but most have it back on this morning. Now to the raging wildfires out west. Nearly 100 are now burning, including 4 in the heavily populated Colorado foothills, not far from Denver.
We are at planning level 5. That's our highest level of fire response.
We have evacuated about 4,000 people on a mandatory evacuation and another 800 in voluntary evacuation.
And that's just for one of the 4 fires. Thousands more have been forced out of their homes. One person was found dead inside a home that burned. Firefighters are battling smoke-challenging winds, extremely dry conditions, and steep mountain terrain as they work to contain the flames. They are also facing another challenge, a large population of rattlesnakes. California's park fire is still growing, but that growth has slowed. More than 5,800 firefighters are using 500 fire engines, 40 helicopters to battle the flames. At last word, the fire destroyed more than 360 buildings and was only 18% contained. And a milestone anniversary. It's been 60 years since this photo was taken. On July 31st, 1964, NASA's Ranger 7 successfully took thousands of photos before it crashed into the moon. Until that year, there weren't any close-ups of our detailed pictures of the lunar surface. Those images were taken, helped identify safe moon landing sites for the historic Apollo 11 mission in 1969. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, the U.S. Drought Monitor just released. It's the latest for the data. We'll show you what it says. And we'll look at how the weather is impacting crops in Indiana and Michigan.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. The humidity will be staying with us today and the heat will be building. Temps going to surge into the upper 80s and 90s during the afternoon today. Look for a lot of sunshine. We'll have hazy sunshine in the Northeast. I can't rule out an isolated shower or thunderstorm here and there. We have a greater risk for thunderstorms in New York as we head into our Friday. That's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll continue to have some hazy sunshine for most of New England with temperatures in the 80s and low 90s.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabela. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region as we watch a couple of showers and thunderstorms that roll through the area late Thursday afternoon and evening. Once again, not too dissimilar to what we had on Wednesday, but we'll continue to watch that lingering into your Friday too, but better chances coming late Friday evening and Friday night with a disturbance to come our way. Now, rain chances are one thing, but the temperatures are going to be very hot before that, nearing the mid-upper 90s, even the triple digits on Thursday and again Friday.
Good Thursday morning, meteorologist Michael Arabor checking out your Southeast regional forecast for this Thursday. There will be a lot of heat out there, popping up some air mass showers and storms, especially for parts of the Carolinas into South Carolina, and plentiful along the sea breezes across much of the Sunshine State, working their way inland during the afternoon. Areas west of Atlanta, northern Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, and Arkansas will be mainly on the rain-free side. Hot high temperatures, mid to upper 90s from Macon, Atlanta, north and west, low to mid 90s for Florida.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Storms this week in the Nashville area yielded some spectacular sights of lightning and the awe it inspired. The shelf cloud was spotted northeast of Nashville as it moved into the area Tuesday evening. These bolts were perfectly timed as a news show ended in Georgia. And in Portland, Oregon, a herd of deer in foggy silhouettes.
Want to see your weather photos and videos on TV? Click Chime In on this station's website to share.
The U.S. Drought Monitor released its latest drought map this morning. It shows extreme drought in West Texas, southern New Mexico, western Montana, and portions of Virginia and West Virginia. Here in Washington, D.C., we have moderate to severe drought, which was enough for local governments to issue a drought watch. And that's for the first time in 14 years. John Gonzalez has the details.
Yeah, the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments has now issued a drought watch for the entire D.C. region, and that affects nearly 6 million residents, and that hasn't happened since 2010. And here in Upper Montgomery County, we are seeing a lot of this, a lot of dead grass, a lot of the white and yellow, brown grass. That's what front lawns look like. In fact, a large portion of Montgomery County is now considered to be in a drought, and D.C. and several counties have issued a voluntary water conservation notice asking residents to limit non-essential water usage. Should drought conditions worsen, mandatory water use restrictions could be put in place. Experts are closely monitoring flows in the Potomac River and keeping up with weather forecasts to determine whether it's necessary to release backup reservoirs for water supply. They're keeping a very close eye on things as things continue to dry up out here.
Heavy rain earlier in the week caused major flash flooding in southwestern North Carolina. Taylor Thompson spoke with residents and officials to find out why flooding from this pop-up thunderstorm was so severe and why cleanup could take months.
It was scary. It was coming down in torrents.
Ray Brouillard says the rain was literally washing away his backyard.
And then the water eventually came up here, and it was insane. You know, we couldn't go anywhere. The weather, it was just coming down so fast.
Henderson County Emergency Management Planner Victoria Cortez says that typically summertime does mean pop-up thunderstorms, but
we did not anticipate the amount of rain that came,
and that the night brought a lot of downed power lines and trees.
We would just start stacking calls where the fire department, battalion chiefs or their chiefs would have a list, and as soon as somebody would become available, then they would go to that next call.
Cortez says there were so many calls at once, but thankfully the rain did move out and they were able to start focusing on the damages at hand.
As far as I know, there's been no injuries, which is very remarkable.
But a lot of damage to roads and driveways.
Perhaps there was debris that was clogging that area ahead of time, and then so much rain just washed through.
Brouillard says the water completely took over the roads.
It was just incredibly dangerous.
And a lot of people are out there with tractors and fixing roads and helping each other.
There are many different types of thunderstorms. One type is called a mesoscale convective system, or an MCS. Meteorologist Kit Alexander explains what an MCS thunderstorm is and how it forms.
During the summer, it's common to see showers and thunderstorms develop. Storms will form under several different conditions and in different locations. According to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, more than 100,000 thunderstorms will develop in the United States each year. One of the most common types of thunderstorms is what meteorologists term as an MCS, or a mesoscale convective system. The National Weather Service defines a mesoscale convective system as a complex of thunderstorms which become organized on a scale larger than the individual storms and normally persist for several hours or more. During the summer, it's common to see these thunderstorms ride along a strong boundary, such as an upper-level ridge or high pressure. They can be pushed by a strong upper-level jet stream. Make sure, though, when it comes to any type of thunderstorm, heed the slogan, when thunder roars, go indoors.
Crops in Indiana and Michigan area are looking good, but things may not be as good as they seem due to the erratic weather. Cicely Porter spoke to farmers who say when it comes to the growing season, timing is everything.
This season for farmers has been uncertain at times. Just this month, our area has seen close to 7 inches of rain. That's 75 to 100% of what's needed for the season. The problem? Most of it came all at once. Heavy downpours early in July from the remnants of Hurricane Beryl caused flooding and waterlog, affecting many crops.
They're definitely suffering, soybeans especially. They don't like wet feet. A lot of them, you can tell by just driving around, they're paler in color. Some of them have even died off. It creates a lot of disease pressure in the soybean crops. Corn as well, it can withstand some of that to an extent, but even the corn is suffering.
Signs of that suffering? Crops that are yellow, pale, or if there are dead spots in the field. However, some crops have grown tall enough where you won't be able to tell if they've been impacted.
It'll be interesting to see what overall, what our yields look like, but there's probably a lot more out there, a lot more yield loss out there than what we can see with the eye.
Too much rain can also cause soybean plants to bloom earlier than usual, possibly resulting in an early harvest.
I think it'll move things up for sure. The heat that we had in June definitely made things bloom a lot sooner, kind of pushed this crop along. The excess water on the areas that are doing well, it's going to speed things up, and I do think that we're going to have an earlier harvest this year.
After severe weather strikes, people often look at the impacts to their home and the community. However, some of the greatest losses are of irreplaceable family heirlooms. Meteorologist Garrett Hyde looks at some ways you can preserve and restore these highly cherished items.
We try and tell people if it's something that you could go out and buy to replace it, maybe don't prioritize that item. Think through all the items that you want to replace and then find those items that you can't replace and prioritize working with those first.
When sifting through rain or flood damaged items, books, documents, and even photographs can potentially be salvaged. To do so, first you'll need safety equipment such as gloves, safety goggles, long sleeves, and an N95 mask. To do a simple 3-bath wash, you'll need a couple of disposable aluminum pans, distilled or tap water, and a soft bristle brush. You can gently sway a damaged photo in the first pan of water to remove any dirt and debris. You can also use a mesh screen to support more delicate items. In the second pan, use a soft bristle brush to then gently wipe away any debris. And that last third pan is for the final rinse just before drying. But to dry, make sure to lay your photos flat and face up on an unprinted towel or hang them on a clothesline by the corners. Just be sure to not let the photos touch and don't dry them in any direct sunlight. Make sure the room that they're drying in has good air circulation, but do make sure that it's not too windy, and definitely do not use a blow dryer. While this may be a lot of work, if you don't have the time to salvage everything right away, you can freeze these items for later.
What freezing does is it kind of stops the clock on the mold growth and other degradation that may be happening to your item until you have a chance to get back to them.
But just be sure to thaw everything out before picking it back up again. Now, if you've got some super delicate items that are really badly damaged, you may want to call in a professional conservator for some extra help.
As we head to break, let's take in the views of the sunrise over the North Cascade Mountains in Washington State.
Well, a very good Thursday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. 90s or even 100 in Wichita for the day today. Scattered showers and thunderstorms, though, across the Midwest, diving their way into the Ohio Valley. They shift a little bit more to the east for your Friday. Still kind of in that same region for Saturday, and got a little bit of rain trying to sneak its way into up to the north there in Minnesota. But look at that, getting into the triple digits potentially there in South Dakota on Saturday. It's going to be a hot weekend.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. Start off a little bit on the warm side up for Oklahoma, into the 80s there. We're into the 70s elsewhere, with the exception of New Orleans, 81 degrees to start the day. Clouds early in the morning will break for sunshine in the afternoon. We'll keep our eye on a weak cold front. Could fire up a little bit of some showers up across the Texas Panhandle and into Oklahoma. Otherwise, the afternoon is going to be very summer-like. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson, and here's what's happening across the West. We have a heat wave building in as very hot air has been pumping temperatures up into triple-digit heat across California, into Nevada, and into Oregon. As we get through the course of the next few days, we're just going to get hotter and drier as high pressure strengthens. It's bringing in wildfire danger to portions of central California. Also, air quality alert still continues from wildfire smoke across Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. That's the scene from here.
The National Weather Desk.
Have you ever heard of a tornado fake-out? Baltimore meteorologist Gerard Jabali explains a very recent one in the city Wednesday evening.
This picture from our sky camera around 5 o'clock looks as if we have a giant tornado touching down just to the south of Baltimore, but it is not. It's a very, very good fake out. What you're seeing here is a big rain shaft of heavy rain pouring down, but it's got a very scary look. And of course, this would worry anyone who saw it. Luckily, we have very good tools. One is we have good eyes, trained eyes to watch the sky and know the difference between seeing a tornado and a rain shaft. The other is the radar is very good at picking up on this too, because we had no rotation as these storms developed, and the atmosphere just was not at all conducive for any rotating thunderstorms. But it's very important to know that we do not issue warnings based upon just a quick look at something like this. The Weather Service doesn't either. We have trained spotters, we have radars, we have everything to be able to tell us whether or not this is something to be worried about, even though it does look rather scary.
For more great weather content, check us out on social media. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm meteorologist Jordan Evans. Make it a great Thursday. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.